The silent watchers, the morning sun painted Earth's atmosphere in brilliant shades of blue and gold when they arrived. Admiral Chenwei stood in the observation deck of Lunar Station, her coffee growing cold in her hands as she watched the enemy fleet materialize from hyperspace. 200 ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities, hung in the void like dark monuments to conquest. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked without turning from the viewport. 43 minutes at current speed, replied Lieutenant Commander Torres, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding immediate surrender." Chen finally turned from the window, her weathered face showing no emotion. At 62, she had spent most of her life preparing for this moment. The brass thought she was paranoid, building defenses for an enemy that might never come. Today, paranoia would save humanity. "Let them broadcast," she said, walking to the central command console. "Have all stations maintain communication silence. We're just a primitive world, remember." The Zerathon Empire had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their ships were massive, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Their soldiers were 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor, and had conquered every species they encountered. To them, Earth was just another soft target, a blue marble populated by weak, divided creatures who would barely manage to reach their own moon. Captain Zexathorix stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominator, his 4 arms crossed behind his massive frame. His reptilian eyes studied the primitive world below with something approaching boredom. The humans had already proven their weakness by refusing to answer their communications. Fear, he assumed. Paralysis in the face of inevitable destruction. "Begin the standard broadcast," he commanded, his voice like grinding stone. "Offer them the usual terms: submission or extinction." The message echoed across Earth in every human language. Television broadcasts were interrupted. Radio signals were overridden. Every communication device on the planet carried the same ultimatum: surrender unconditionally, and your species will be preserved as servants. Resist, and your world burns. In cities across Earth, people stopped what they were doing and stared at screens showing the alien fleet. Some panicked, running through streets in terror. Others stood frozen, unable to process the reality of what they saw. But in government buildings, in military bases, and in hidden facilities buried deep underground, a different kind of reaction was taking place. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had been studying alien archaeology for 20 years, long before anyone believed aliens existed. Her colleagues had called her theories about ancient galactic civilizations pure fantasy. Now, in the Crisis Command Center beneath Colorado, she was the most valuable person on Earth. "Their formation is exactly what we predicted," she said, studying the tactical display. Standard Zerathon intimidation pattern. "They're not expecting resistance." Admiral Chen's voice came through the secure channel from Lunar Station. "How much time do we need?" Sarah looked at the countdown timer on her screen. 3 minutes to full deployment. 2 more for targeting locks. They won't know what hit them. For 50 years, ever since the first intercepted alien communication had been decoded, Earth had been preparing. Not openly, not in a way that would cause panic or reveal their capabilities to watching eyes. The preparation had been hidden, disguised as civilian projects, spread across dozens of countries and hundreds of private corporations. The massive solar collection, arrays orbiting between Earth and Mars, weren't just power generators. They were weapon platforms, capable of focusing concentrated energy beams with surgical precision. The asteroid mining operations in the belt weren't just harvesting resources. They were positioning kinetic weapons that could accelerate to devastating velocities. The lunar research stations weren't just studying geology. They were command and control centers for the most sophisticated defense network ever created. Commander Hayes floated in the pilot seat of his stealth fighter, one of 300 identical ships hidden in the shadow of Saturn's rings. His craft was invisible to Zerathon sensors, its hull made from materials that absorbed every form of detection the aliens used. For 6 months, his squadron had been waiting in silence, surviving on recycled air and concentrated rations. "Phoenix. Squadron, this is Control," came Admiral Chen's voice through his neural implant. "Begin final approach. Maintain stealth protocol until engagement." Hayes felt his heart rate increase as his ship's engines came online. Around him, invisible to each other and to the enemy, nearly 1,000 human fighters began their journey. Toward Earth, the Zerathon had brought 200 capital ships. Humanity was about to show them what real numbers looked like. On Earth's surface, the surrender broadcast continued. World leaders appeared on television, their faces grave, their voices heavy with defeat. They spoke of the impossible odds, of the need to preserve human life, of the painful decision to submit to superior force. Every word was carefully scripted, every gesture designed to convince the aliens that humanity had already given up. In reality, those same leaders were in secure bunkers, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Every detail had been planned and rehearsed. Every possible scenario had been considered. The Zerathan Empire was powerful, but they had made one critical mistake. They had assumed that Earth's apparent weakness was real. Captain Zexarok watched the human surrender broadcasts with satisfaction. The species was reacting exactly as expected, their leaders begging for mercy, their populations fleeing in terror. It would all be over soon. The humans would be processed, their world strip-mined, their culture erased. Another successful conquest for the Empire. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures from their orbital installations." Zextarok barely glanced at the readings. Primitive power generation. "Their infrastructure is failing under stress. Ignore it." It was exactly the reaction Sarah Mitchell had predicted. The Zerathan was so certain of their superiority that they dismissed any anomaly as evidence of human primitiveness. They saw what they expected to see, a weak species crumbling under pressure. What they didn't see were the targeting systems coming online throughout the solar system. They didn't notice the gravitational anomalies as cloaked ships moved into position. They didn't recognize the energy buildup in what appeared to be civilian satellites. They had studied dozens of species, conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never encountered anything like humanity's capacity for deception and preparation. Admiral Chen watched her tactical display as green lights appeared across the board. Every weapon system was online. Every ship was in position. Every soldier was ready. In 60 years of military service, she had never seen such perfect coordination. Humanity might be divided by politics and culture, but when faced with extinction, they had united with a precision that would have impressed their enemies, if their enemies had understood what they were seeing. "All stations report ready," Lieutenant Commander Torres announced. Chen looked at the chronometer. The Zerathon fleet was beginning its final approach to Earth. In their arrogance, they were moving into the perfect killing zone. Once they passed the moon's orbit, there would be no escape. "Dr. Mitchell," Chen said, "are you certain about their defensive capabilities?" Sarah nodded grimly. Their shields are designed to stop kinetic weapons and energy beams from predictable vectors. They've never faced coordinated attacks from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their armor can handle massive single impacts, but fails catastrophically under sustained precision strikes. We know because we've been studying their technology for 5 decades. The truth was even more remarkable than that. Humanity hadn't just been preparing defenses. They had been infiltrating Zerathon society, stealing technology, mapping their weaknesses. The aliens thought they were the only intelligence in the galaxy. They were about to learn that human intelligence extended far beyond their borders. Commander Hayes watched his tactical display as the Zerathon fleet moved past Lunar Station. Admiral Chen was still there, still broadcasting false surrender negotiations, still playing the role of a defeated commander. The performance was flawless. The aliens never suspected that Lunar Station was actually the command center for Earth's entire defense network. Phoenix Squadron, weapons free, came the order. Commence, attack, run. Hayes smiled grimly as his fighter's systems came fully online. The stealth coating began to fade as his weapons powered up. Around him, 1,000 other ships became visible, simultaneously, appearing out of empty space like ghosts, materializing in the void. The Zerathon sensor officer stared at his display in confusion. "Sir, I'm reading massive contacts throughout the system. They just ... appeared." Captain Zexthorax spun toward the sensor station, his 4 eyes widening. "That's impossible. Our scouts reported no significant military presence." "Sir, I'm counting over 3,000 individual ships. And they're everywhere." For the first time in his career, Zexthorax felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The humans had seemed so primitive, so helpless. How could they have hidden such a massive fleet? The answer came in the form of weapons fire from directions the Zerathon had thought were empty space. Particle beams from hidden lunar installations, kinetic projectiles from asteroid mines, energy, weapons from orbital platforms disguised as communications satellites. The attack came from everywhere at once, precisely coordinated, devastatingly effective. The first Zerathon ship to die was a heavy cruiser on the fleet's outer edge. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized by focused energy beams from 3 different sources. The second ship tried to raise shields, but found its power systems overloaded by electromagnetic pulse weapons it couldn't detect until too late. In the space of 30 seconds, 20 Zerathon ships were destroyed or disabled. Their formation, so perfect for intimidation, became a death trap as human weapons found optimal firing solutions on multiple targets simultaneously. Captain Zexthorax stared at his tactical display in horror. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. And they were doing it with technology he didn't recognize, tactics he didn't understand, and a level of coordination that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," he commanded. "Return fire on all targets." But there were too many targets, attacking from too many directions. Every time his ships tried to focus on one group of human fighters, another group would appear from a different vector. It was like fighting smoke, like battling ghosts. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. 50 years of preparation, 50 years of hiding Earth's true capabilities, and it was all paying off perfectly. The Zerathon was strong, but strength meant nothing without intelligence, and humanity had just revealed that they were the most intelligent species the galaxy had ever seen. The first phase of the battle was over in less than 3 minutes. Half the Zeruthan fleet was gone, and the other half was in complete disarray. But Chen knew this was just the beginning. The real surprise was yet to come. The 5-minute war. The Zerathon fleet was in chaos. Captain Zexadok had lost 90 ships in the first wave, and his remaining vessels were scattered across 1,000,000 cubic kilometers of space. His bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to coordinate a defense against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. "Status report," he roared, his forearms gesturing wildly at the tactical displays. 70% casualties on the outer ring, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "The humans are using some kind of phasing technology. Our sensors can't lock onto them consistently." Zexarax snarled in frustration. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Zerathon Empire had never encountered resistance like this. These humans weren't just defending themselves. They were systematically dismantling his fleet with surgical precision. Every shot hit its mark. Every maneuver was perfectly timed. It was as if they knew exactly how his ships would respond to every situation. What he didn't know was that they did in the command center beneath Colorado. Dr. Sarah Mitchell watched real-time intelligence feeds from sensors embedded in Z equipment. For decades, human infiltrators had been placing microscopic monitoring devices in alien technology during routine trade transactions. The Zerathon Empire was so vast, so confident in their superiority, that they never bothered to scan for surveillance equipment from primitive species. "They're trying to form a defensive sphere around their flagship," Sarah reported to Admiral Chen. "Standard Zerathon panic formation. They'll concentrate fire at the center and try to create a kill zone." Chen's voice came through the com with cold satisfaction. "Then let's give them something to concentrate on. Commander Hayes, begin Phase 2. In space, Commander Hayes received the order with a grim smile. Phase 1 had been about revealing humanity's hidden strength. Phase 2 was about showing the aliens what human engineering could really accomplish. "Phoenix Squadron, engage cloaking systems and prepare for close assault," he commanded. Around him, his fighters seemed to vanish again, but this time it wasn't stealth technology. This time, they were using something the Zerathon had never seen before. The human fighters didn't just disappear from sensors. They disappeared from reality itself. Quantum phase generators, developed in secret facilities on Europa, allowed the ships to exist slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. They could pass through solid matter, avoid energy weapons, and strike from impossible angles. Watched in horror as human fighters materialized inside his defensive formation, literally appearing within the hulls of his own ships. They fired from point-blank range, their weapons tearing through armor that was designed to withstand planetary bombardment. Ship after ship exploded from within, their crews never knowing what hit them. "This is impossible," he screamed at his science officer. "Matter cannot behave this way." "Sir," the science officer replied, his scales pale with terror, "I believe the humans have mastered dimensional manipulation. Their technology is far beyond anything in our databases." The truth was even more remarkable. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They had revolutionized the very concept of warfare. While the Zerathon Empire had spent millennia perfecting bigger guns and thicker armor, humans had been thinking outside the traditional concepts of space and time. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching as her carefully orchestrated plan unfolded. The Zerathon fleet, once so intimidating, was being systematically destroyed by forces they couldn't understand or counter. But the most devastating weapon hadn't been deployed yet. "Dr. Mitchell, what's the status?" "On the Mars array." Sarah checked her instruments. "Charging sequence at 90%. We'll have full power in 30 seconds. The Mars array was humanity's ultimate secret weapon. Hidden within the planet's northern polar ice cap, it was a gravitational manipulation device that could alter the fabric of space-time itself. To outside observers, it appeared to be a routine geological research station. In reality, it was the most powerful weapon ever created by any known species. Commander Hayes led his squadron through another impossible maneuver, phasing through the hull of a Zerathon battleship and emerging on the far side to attack its unprotected engines. The enemy was trying desperately to adapt, but every countermeasure they attempted had been anticipated and planned for. "All units, this is Control." Admiral Chen's voice filled the comm channels. "Clear the target zone. Mars array is coming online." Hayes felt a chill as he pulled his fighter away from the alien fleet. He had seen the test data from the Mars array. What was about to happen would redefine the concept of destructive power. On the Zerathon flagship, Captain Zexthorak made a decision that went against every instinct he possessed. "Signal, General, retreat. All ships, maximum burn away from this system." But it was too late. The Mars array had achieved full power, and Dr. Sarah Mitchell was already inputting targeting coordinates. The weapon didn't fire projectiles or energy beams. Instead, it created localized gravitational anomalies that could compress matter, stretch space-time, or create miniature black holes. "Firing," Sarah announced, her finger hovering over the control panel. The effect was invisible to the naked eye, but devastating in its impact. Space around the Zerothan fleet began to distort. Ships that tried to flee found themselves moving backward as space-time itself contracted ahead of them. Others were caught in gravitational shears that twisted their hulls into impossible shapes. Zexthorak felt his flagship shudder as reality bent around it. Through the viewports he could see stars stretching into lines, planets appearing in multiple locations simultaneously. His instruments were going mad, registering readings that violated every known law of physics. "What are they doing to us?" he whispered. His science officer had collapsed at his station, overwhelmed by the impossible data flooding his senses. They're rewriting the fundamental laws of space-time. This level of technology should require the resources of an entire galactic civilization. The Zerathon captain suddenly understood the magnitude of his mistake. Earth wasn't a primitive world that had somehow hidden a fleet. Earth was the center of a galactic civilization that had been hiding in plain sight. The humans weren't defending their homeworld. They were revealing their true power for the first time. In less than 5 minutes, the Zerathon invasion fleet had been completely destroyed. Some ships were vaporized by focused energy weapons. Others were torn apart by gravitational anomalies. A few simply ceased to exist as they were caught between dimensions by phased matter weapons. Captain Zexthorak found himself alone on his command bridge, his crew dead, his ship crippled and drifting. Through the static-filled communications system, he heard a voice speaking in perfect Zerathon military dialect. Captain Zexthorak, Admiral Chun's voice, was calm and professional. "This is Admiral Chun Wei of the Earth Defense Force. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet is destroyed. You have approximately 10 minutes of life support remaining." Zexthorak activated his personal recorder, his hands shaking as he spoke his final message. To the High Command of the Zerathon Empire. The species designated as humans is not what we believed. They are not primitive. They are not defenseless. They are the most advanced civilization we have ever encountered. Recommend immediate cessation of all hostile activities toward Earth and its territories. Admiral Chun's voice continued through the COM system. We will now broadcast a message to your homeworld and to all other species currently considering aggressive action toward Earth. The message is simple. Humanity is not interested in conquest, but we will not tolerate threats to our existence. Any species that approaches our system with hostile intent will share your fate. The message that went out to the Zerathon Empire and beyond was brief, but unmistakably clear. It contained tactical recordings of the battle, specifications for some of humanity's weapons, and a detailed breakdown of exactly how the invasion had been countered. The implications were staggering. Earth wasn't just another world in the galaxy. It was the hidden capital of a civilization that had been secretly studying, infiltrating, and preparing for contact with galactic society for over a century. They had agents embedded in every major empire. They had technology that surpassed anything previously known, and they had just demonstrated that they could destroy any threat with casual EFFICIENCY. Dr. Sarah Mitchell watched the communications array as acknowledgement signals came in from across the galaxy. The Zerathon Empire was issuing immediate orders for all ships to avoid human space. Other aggressive species were cancelling planned expansion into Earth's sector. Within hours, the galactic balance of power had completely shifted. Phase 3, she asked Admiral Chen. Chen shook her head. Not necessary. The demonstration was sufficient. They understand now. Commander Hayes guided his fighter back toward Earth, looking out at the debris field that had once been a proud invasion fleet. In 5 minutes, humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in terms that no one could misunderstand. They weren't the primitive species everyone had assumed. They were the apex predators who had been waiting patiently for someone to make the first move. The war was over before most people on Earth even knew it had begun. The Zerathon Empire would spend the next decade trying to understand how they had so completely misjudged human capabilities. Other species would race to establish diplomatic relations with the newly revealed galactic superpower. But in the command centers and secret facilities where humanity's true defenders worked, there was no celebration. They had revealed their hand, ended their period of hidden observation, and changed the galaxy forever. The age of human secrecy was over. The age of human dominance had just begun. Admiral Chen looked out at the stars, knowing that everything had changed. For 50 years, humanity had watched and waited, learning about the galaxy while pretending to be isolated and primitive. Now they were revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same. Status report on all systems, she requested. All weapons systems nominal. All ships accounted for. 0 casualties, Lieutenant Commander Torres replied. Chen nodded with satisfaction. They had achieved perfect victory against an enemy that had conquered a quarter of the galaxy. In 5 minutes, humanity had gone from apparent helplessness to absolute dominance. Send a message to all Earth governments, she ordered. The masquerade is over. It's time to take our place in the galaxy. The message went out on every channel, reaching every corner of human space. After a century of hiding, of pretending to be weak and divided, humanity was ready to step onto the galactic stage. They had spent decades preparing for this moment, building weapons that could challenge gods, creating technologies that rewrote the laws of physics. The aliens had thought Earth was defenseless. They had learned in the most devastating way possible, that appearances could be deceiving. Humanity wasn't just another species struggling to survive in a hostile galaxy. They were the galaxy's new apex predators, and they had just announced their presence in terms that no one could ignore. The 5-minute war was over. The age of human galactic dominance had begun, and across the stars, every species capable of interstellar travel was asking the same question. What other surprises were the humans hiding? They would find out soon enough.